The explanation of dreams as being of our subconscious mind is not entirely true. Our sleep state opens the door into all levels of the mind, and you will find dreams taking place on all levels. Part of the importance of dream interpretation would be to try and differentiate between those levels of dreams. This can be done if a detailed record is kept and, if possible, what time of the night the dream occurred. There is a point in a full night's sleep where each person will rise to the upper levels, mostly levels 7, 8, and 9. This is when they are attending lectures at the halls of wisdom and knowledge. These levels are usually the height the dream attains, although very rarely it can go higher if directed to by the teacher of the lectures. Otherwise, when class is over, the levels drop slowly back down to the lowest before rising to the normal operating level of 3. This is why, when we are woke up out of a sound sleep unexpectedly, we are startled and out of sorts. We're not operating on the proper level when awakened. This is why we sometimes feel depressed. For example, if we had expected to sleep later, we programmed our computer this way. Then, say, the phone wakes us up at a low level of plane 3. We have that tired out, dragged down, depressed feeling, not really liking anyone and capable of hurting people's feelings. Maybe we're even capable of hurting them physically with no feeling of remorse. We have a feeling of not fitting in, of resentment towards those who love humanity, and so on. This is a good example for us to learn from as to what people feel like that operate at that level all the time. This can be used as an experience to help us understand others. I would like to explain the difference between being on the inner planes with someone and having a dream. When you are on the inner planes at night with someone, it is simply your soul, when it leaves for R&R, being with the half of the soul of the other person on the inner planes. You are not with the half of their soul that is in an incarnation. This could happen, but it is very rare. For the most part, you go to be with your own soul, but there may be a time when you need to be with another soul to ease a tension in the daily life, or to communicate something that there is no time to communicate in daily life. You may even need to warn another soul of a danger to the personality they are watching over, if the half of this other person's soul is not aware of certain situations. This is also rare. When having a dream about another person, this is done through the animal-based brain working out situations with this other person that are reflecting into the sleep state. The other person is not involved in the dream at all. It is merely the person having the dream trying to resolve his own personal feelings and problems with the other person. Perhaps it is someone they work with, or perhaps there is a karmic debt. This can be worked on and understood on the dream plane of the animal-based brain. As given, this does not involve the other person at all. It is all within your own animal-based brain mind. There is a distinct difference between the two situations, dreams and inner planes. The inner planes are very profound as far as the effect it has on the bond between people in the exoteric life, as is also the dream. But the dream is a one-sided effect. The inner plane meaning is a double-sided effect. Children's dreams can quite often show them as flowers, birds, or animals, or perhaps back even further as rocks and stones. This is part of the child's fascination with rocks and stones and plants and animals. This is where their dreams are going to be located to begin with. The memory cycle of the brain will follow evolution. It is as simple as that. This would be the mineral kingdom, the botanical kingdom, and both parts of the biological kingdom, the animal and human, in that order. In the overall picture of your eternal life, Earth is the dream world. Some lives are bad dreams, some are good. When you leave a life on Earth, it is as though you are waking up and vividly remembering a dream. In other words, roles are just reversed from what they are now. Just as you do learn through your dreams now, when you go home to the inner planes, you have learned, supposedly, through your dream life on Earth. As far as the conception of time, the relationship of the time a dream takes in your life now is the same as the time your life now is taking out of your eternal life. My son saw our cat Clemmy asleep in his bed. I said to him that she thinks she's a human. He went to get his camera and made some noise that woke her up. We talked about whether animals dream like people. I personally think they probably do, because I've seen both cats and dogs sleeping with their feet moving, just as like they're running after something. I asked my son if he had many dreams, and he said that he had some but couldn't remember them. That used to be my problem, but I started keeping track of them by writing them down. Dreams do serve a real purpose in our lives. One of the purposes of dreams is an attempt to discard some of what we are assimilating as not belonging to our truths. It allows the material that does not fit into a person's makeup, things that are in conflict with their belief system, to be worked through and discarded on the inner planes. If this does not take place on the inner planes, it will eventually manifest in the outer life and have to be worked through in this manner. Another purpose that dreams have is they are the soul's way of processing many emotional problems and resolving them before they cause problems to the entity in his everyday life, especially when a person becomes more evolved on the spiritual path. Perhaps an experience occurs in your daily life, such as a disagreement with a friend. Problems of this nature, and also business problems, health problems, and most every other type of problem that one can experience on the earth plane, can and will be worked out on the inner planes while in the dream state. Those who don't remember dreams are not necessarily less evolved, just less aware or enlightened. This is their loss, and they should get on a schedule that will help them remember their dreams. Dreams are going to be one of the safest, surest ways to understand your own actions and feelings once it is learned how to interpret them. Dream interpretation is the soul's way of trying to soften the animal-based brain. Dreams allow people to stretch their minds by trying to figure out the meaning of the dream. There are books published about dream interpretation, but in order to use them, one must first learn to recall the dream. Some suggestions of ways to improve dream recall would be to announce to yourself before going to sleep your intentions to recall as much as possible about your dreams. The first thing upon waking, you should write down everything you can recall about your dream, especially the overall feeling the dream left you with. We suggest keeping a tablet beside the bed for writing if you wake up in the middle of the night remembering a dream. We also suggest not to eat after 8 p.m. in the evenings. Eating after 8 p.m. and then retiring several hours later leaves undigested food in the system for the very hours that the system is needed to completely function properly to process dreams, which are as stabilizers to the animal-based brain. It has to do with processing daily activity in the exoteric life, and if the digestive system is clogged, the daily activities will suffer. Try to rate your dreams each morning as to what level you think you were operating on. If you wake up with music playing in your head or a beautiful picture unfolding around you, you probably were on level 4, 5, or 6. The spiritual dreams that are really meaningful take you up to levels 10, 11, and 12. Humans are capable of these levels when asleep because the ego, the animal brain, is the part that sleeps, and when it is out of the way, the soul comes into its own focus and it is free to roam all over. It depends on what level of evolution the soul is on as to where it spends the major part of its free time. The free time is when the physical body is asleep, which of course includes the physical brain, which is where the ego, the lower self, the animal brain, is.
Dreams can be a tool to help you see where karma lies in this lifetime. Nightmares are looking through past records. Sometimes they will go back into previous lives, but for the most part it will only be events in this life. If a previous life is involved, it is because it was one of the goals you wish to accomplish to clear karma from a previous life. These are the dreams that are so difficult to understand. The nightmare that you, Norma, had the other night was the beating to death you suffered in your previous life. You were consciously blocking it when awake, but something touched it off. Some thought or picture or memory brought back the terror of that death for you to experience. Anger, such as you sensed in this one in your dream, is frightening. It is an all-consuming feeling of such disharmony with all that is good that it gives off the essence of something so horrible as to be indescribable. It is uncontrollable. If you had this buried in the memory bank of your computer, think how sick you would be until you could pull it out and be rid of it. One must be given the opportunity to do this, and the one you felt this anger in will be given this opportunity. It is caused by the use of black magic within one's own makeup. It is a misuse of one's own psychic power, perhaps unbeknownst consciously, that sets up the circumstances that allow this uncontrollable, horrible feeling to take over. It is not being possessed by the devil or even another entity. It is being possessed by the evil in your own makeup that you have actually taken pleasure in, therefore giving more power to this evil. It is this evil, then, that turns wild. In other words, it's energy running wild. The person displaying this wants to stop, hates what he is doing, and knows all the while he is doing it that the real person that he is doesn't want to do it. He can actually feel it creeping into him. He knows it's coming, and the one part of himself watches fascinated but helpless while this overtakes him, and it must be played out to release it. Whatever or whoever is in its path is destroyed. Yes, exactly like a tornado. The buildup of energy forces is so strong and evil that to contemplate it is to make one sick to the center of his being. Your dream showed you in your own vehicle, your van, when the anger and subsequent beating began. You knew someone in that vehicle was going to be beaten. You sensed this building up. Then you heard the screams as though coming from the vehicle behind you. In dream interpretation, vehicle means your body. It was at this time that you left your body and were watching the beating and hearing the screams. As the others led him away, you felt the horrible anger and evil sickness inside him, because by this time you had crossed completely over, though the ones leading him away didn't realize it then, nor did he. You subsequently felt more of his horror and sickness as he realized that he had inadvertently killed you. You, meanwhile, loved him intensely as you had through all the previous beatings. He will someday remember what it was he did that caused the energy to turn on him. This was learned in Atlantis, and is why he keeps such a tight rein on any psychic power. At the same time, he must loosen that hold and allow enough through to show him his way. One day he will know what to do to release the situation forever.
Lucid dreaming is controlling your dreams. The effort that it would take to learn to control your dreams would be better spent on other things. The dream stage is a natural, normal release valve for the total human form. Subliminal tapes would be a controlled method of dreaming in a scientific manner, but lucid dreaming would be controlled strictly by the emotional body and could be disastrous in that it would lead you off the path and the goals that you came in to work on. As far as dreaming over and over to try to bring the outcome of the dream around to fulfill the animal-based brain's wishes and desires, this could be considered manipulation of others in the worst form, and much karma would be reaped. The inner life takes care of much that we consider garbage on a day-to-day basis without the person even being aware. Sometimes he's not even aware that it bothered him to begin with. When it comes out in a dream that is remembered, it seems as foreign to the exoteric self as it did to the esoteric self when it was first assimilated. These dreams could be considered nothing more than a cleansing. There are ways of pursuing the interpretation of dreams, but many times they would be best left not interpreted. The internal working or processing system of the two halves of the soul will process them absolutely correctly. When trying to interpret them yourself, many misinterpretations are made. This can cause much misery and unhappiness for the one who has followed a course of action that he thought his dreams were trying to give him. The symbolism of the soul was the only means of a communication language that the soul had for the first long stage of evolution of the entering of the animal forms. When they first entered, there was no language present. There were a few grunts, but how could the soul communicate his delicate and sensitive ideas to this ungainly form through grunts? This was the actual beginning of the symbology of the soul. It evolved at the same time the actual speaking language did, and it was universal. It did not waver between tribes. The souls used these symbols between themselves along with thought transference. They are still used today for channeling and for dreams. Can you imagine what a confused state there would be if the teachers and guides tried to match up with those on the earth plane who knew the same language if direct vocabulary was used? This is a picture of a sacred suite of 8 auspicious signs endemic to a number of Indian religions, such as Hinduism, Jainism, and Buddhism. The symbols or symbolic attributes are teaching tools. The first row, the left to right, a parasol, pair of golden fish, and conch. The second row, a treasure vase, lotus, and the last row, infinite knot, victory banner, and wheel. These stand for head, eyes, teeth, throat, lips, heart, body, and feet. Symbology is universal and should be thought of as a communication language of the soul or inner part of each being. Children should be taught this symbology at the same time they are learning to speak their own particular language, be that whatever. One cannot correctly interpret their dreams and thereby communicate with their soul if they do not understand the language of the soul. This could be a very important stage in the continuing development of mankind. There have been various forms of this symbology brought through during the past ages, but no one has ever attempted to record the total language and translate it to every language in use on the earth plane today. This would be an immense task.